Hi there, and welcome back. In this module, we'll be continuing our discussion on the systems you need to put in place to successfully run your business. In the previous modules, we talked about using spreadsheets and files to track, trace, and forecast the financial movements within your business. At some point, you might decide to deploy additional software in order to automate certain processes. Software will allow your systems to speak to each other so that your forecast then becomes your quote and your invoice. There are quite a few financial software applications available, and the most popular of these for small businesses are Sage, go to sage.co.uk, QuickBooks Pro, go to quickbooks.com, Intuit, go to intuit.com, Cashflow for UK businesses only, go to cashflow.co.uk, and Taz Software, go to tazsoftware.co.uk. Once again, you need to do some research and find a system with which you're comfortable. However, you don't need to overcomplicate things at this stage. If you're happy just running spreadsheets, that's great. Spreadsheets work perfectly well as management tools, as long as they're updated frequently. It all comes down to having the discipline to regularly input and manage your data. Okay, so now we've got the systems in place, we have neat, orderly files, and our spreadsheets are ready to go. The next thing to establish is what we're going to charge for our services. Calculating your charge-out rate is part science and part gut feel. To work out the science bit, you can use the following formula. First, you need to calculate your overheads per hour. To do this, work out what your fixed expenses will be per year, and then add these to your variable expenses per year. You then divide the sum by the number of working hours for the year. The formula looks like this. Fixed expenses plus variable expenses per annum divided by number of hours per annum. This golden number is then your break-even cost per hour. For example, let's say the number is £17.50 per hour. You can see that if you're getting paid £15 per hour, you're losing money. And if you're charging £17.50 per hour, all you're doing is covering your costs. There is no allowance for contingencies and, worse still, for slower periods. And that's not to mention the extra cash you'll need for that amazing overseas holiday. Your rock-bottom charge-out rate should always be your break-even rate plus 10% to allow for contingencies. If you're asked to work for less than this, consider not taking the job. Let's face it, no one wants to work to just cover their expenses. Also, there's always going to be downtime, things that go wrong, new hardware to purchase, training to do, and so on. To come out with a reasonably accurate break-even number, you need to decide on the number of hours you'd be happy to work each week. Be realistic, and remember to include administration and self-promotion related hours in your tally. Now, it's impossible to accurately predict downtime over any given year, so it's worth being conservative and planning for a low-road option. If you're still feeling a little unsure about what a reasonable rate might be, you can get a better idea by benchmarking your skills and experience against recent salary surveys in your industry. Another neat trick is to send your CV off to freelance agencies. It'll give you a feel for what you're worth, but remember to add approximately 15 to 20% on top of their number. This is usually the amount of markup they put onto your rate when they charge your time to clients. So now you know your break-even rate and what your experience and skills are currently worth in the industry. This is when the gut feel bit comes into play. If you know you're really good, and you have an amazing portfolio of work, glowing testimonials, and the phone's always ringing, then have a punt at the top end of the market. Charge what the market can bear, is what an economist would say. Of course, you might prefer to charge a little less than the very top-end rate, as this would help you get the job when competing against the other top-end suppliers. Rather do more hours at a slightly lower rate than fewer hours at the top rate. The level at which you set your rates is also very dependent on the types of clients you have. For example, if you're working in the financial services or insurance industries, you'll find that clients are more comfortable with higher rates than perhaps a charity or smaller business client would be. Now, there's no doubt that different types of work require varying levels of effort and skill. Sourcing stock from a stock library or applying an established look and feel to a template is much less taxing on the brain than producing concepts, strategy, or photography. As such, experienced clients will expect to see a variance in your rates. So you may want to consider having two charge bands, one for concept and strategy, and one for application, rollout, artwork, sourcing stock, signing off proofs, and so on. Decide on what makes sense to you and keep it simple. If you have too many charge bands, you'll find it difficult to use them consistently. Alternatively, you might opt for one rate per hour and stick to that regardless of the job you're doing. This works well if you work within agencies and organizations on ongoing contracts. However, if you work across many clients and you do a wide variety of jobs, then consider having two charge bands. You can, of course, have two charge-out rates for the same type of work. Again, it comes down to what the market will bear and charging the right amount to get the work in. For example, you'll likely get more frequent work from smaller businesses, but they usually won't pay top dollar. Perhaps you'd like to balance your work between heavyweight agency or corporate work and smaller one-man bands and startups where you have more creative freedom. If this is the case, let your corporate work subsidize the pleasure work by having a corporate rate and a standard rate for work. Just be careful that you don't get the two confused and have your corporate client discover that you're charging them a premium. Okay, time for a few tips. Conceptual development, strategy, copywriting, illustration and photography are mostly viewed as the top-end inputs to most projects. On the other hand, design development, artwork, stock sourcing, print management, project management, programming and animation are viewed as rollout or development processes and are usually billed at a lower rate than conceptual work. If you're managing print on behalf of your client, remember to charge a print management fee, particularly if it's a complex print job and you're passing on press. This usually means time out of your day to visit some industrial estate on the wrong side of town and standing waiting for the first sheets to roll off the press. It takes time and skill to pass on press, so make sure you charge for it. Remember that clients expect to pay fees dependent on where you are geographically located. They use the local market as their benchmark. So if you're working from Thailand for London-based clients, you'll seldom get away with charging top-end London rates. Now, let's chat about project management fees. Always a tricky one. In a nutshell, if you're coordinating a complex project that requires external suppliers and you find that you need to source and manage these relationships in order to meet the deadline, then there's no reason why you shouldn't charge for your time and the effort required. However, if you're only working towards one deadline and it's only you delivering the project, then you can hardly get away with charging to project manage yourself. Well, now you know all about charging for your time, but how about managing it? It's important to remember that as a creative, you're mostly selling your time. It's not often that you'll get the opportunity to earn a royalty or revenue share on a project, so your only currency is in fact your time. Make sure that you get into the habit of recording time spent on a client's work, and that you charge this time as appropriate. You should also decide what your minimum billing is, and make this known to your client up front. It may seem petty to charge for a 5-minute phone call, but if you field 12 of those in a week, that's an hour of billable time that your client has run up. A further benefit is that if the client knows that they'll get charged for this, they're less likely to harass you with minor queries several times a day. There are loads of free time management applications available on the web, so do some research, download one, and start using it as your daily time recorder. Right, one final point about time. Time management also extends to managing the time you spend working diligently. You need to ensure that you're not wasting time and therefore money by working inefficiently. If you find you're getting distracted by Facebook or ICQ chats, then switch them off during the day. Also, keep a record of the time you spend doing daily administration tasks, such as filing and bookkeeping. If you're turning away work because you don't have enough time to do the daily administration tasks, then consider getting some help for a day each week. This will free up your time so you can concentrate on earning your day rate. Managing your time is a key skill to master. That's all we have time for now. In the next module, we'll take a look at the difference between quotes and cost estimates, and we'll go through the various types of charges and markups that you need to be aware of. Goodbye for now.